everybody. Welcome back to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. We are the Blue Collar Ballers. I'm DJ.
And I'm John.
And you can find us on Twitter at John2977 and at Armchair Kingpin, as well as at ArmchairFB at gmail.com. You can email us. And we are also on Twitter as a unit at Armchair FF Pod as well. Right, John?
Correct.
So Bizarro World is over. Week 1 is in the books, and it is definitely Bizarro World when you have elite players like Stephon Diggs score 5 PPR points and nobodies and never wears like John Ross scoring upwards of 30.
John Ross blew me away. I did not even expect that. There was some that I think we called out, and then there was some that I just got blindsided by. I can't believe it, you know?
So yeah, we're gonna react to some of that stuff today and basically go through the box scores pretty much, matchup by matchup, and kind of give our reactions on each game's results and players that we're looking at on the waiver wire as well, right, John?
Yep,
and,
right.
A lot of interesting names on the waiver wire this week, everywhere from the aforementioned John Ross to maybe Hollywood Brown and DK Metcalf might somehow be on your waiver wire in 10-team leagues, and there's really a lot to unpack, and there's a lot to unpack in the news as well, because this is really the first you're hearing from us on the Antonio Brown saga. So I'll let you kind of kick off the news, John.
Yeah, so in news, I'm going to stick mostly to injuries, only because...
I think we have Brown on the docket, for sure.
Yeah. Antonio Brown, obviously... Antonio Brown's our news every week. So the biggest thing with Antonio Brown, he's now a Patriot. If you haven't followed the news this weekend, he got released by the Raiders, and the Patriots had signed him to a 1-year contract with, I believe, $15 million with $9 million in incentives, and they just optioned him an option for 2020 as well, I believe, for another year. So if he takes the option, or they take the option. So what do you think of that?
Like I said, man, there is an awful lot to unpack with this situation. You know, you got to feel for Raiders fans. We have a guy in our league. Actually, you can't feel for him too bad because they won last night, which is great. Yeah. That's great to see. Hopefully they continue to win without Antonio Brown. I mean, we got a guy in our league, though, Ernie. He's a hardcore Raiders fan, and he burnt his brown jersey, and I don't blame him. It's his property; it's his right to do that. And that I will say though, an Antonio Brown Raiders jersey 10 years from now is going to be a collector's item because he never played a game.
He never played a game, yeah.
But obviously, there's so many different aspects of this that have gone through my mind. Number one. Let's be honest. Is there collusion involved? Are the Patriots at it again with their breaking of the rules? So,
as much as I want to say collusion, and I think there was breaking of the rules.
Well, let's visit that in a sec, because I want to kind of compartmentalize this. So there's the collusion compartment, right?
Yep.
And if it's not collusion, then Antonio Brown is. I guess I'll just come out and say he's mentally ill. I mean, if this erratic behavior. John and I had talked about it, and I'm like, this is alarming, erratic behavior. These are warning signs and red flags that you see in people that end up doing really bad things to themselves or others. It really is, and I don't want to understate that. So that could be the case. And then the whole thing of it is, my son is behind the camera right now, and I have 2 sons and a daughter, and John, you've got 2 sons and a daughter,
yep.
And is the example set here to the youth of America that if you don't like your situation, that you can just cause disruption and throw temper tantrums, and then you can get what you want? You know what I mean? So those are the 3 compartments that I put in to this. Any way you slice it, any way you look at those 3 things, it's not good. What do I think? What is my gut instinct? I mean, I hate to say this, but this thing smells like a whole wharf full of fish, dude. it's pretty clear the Patriots were not allowed to trade with Pittsburgh because they weren't going to do it. They offered him a better haul, allegedly, for Brown with a first-round pick than did the Raiders with, I think, a third and a fifth, if I'm not mistaken. And they went with the Raiders because they just didn't want Brown to be in the AFC, I think, number one. And number two, they didn't want him on one of their main competitors, the Patriots, in terms of, competing for the AFC title. So to circumvent that, did they collude with Brown? I knowing the Patriots' track record, I can't help but think that they're at it again, John.
Well, see, I'm a Pats fan. You guys know that, and DJ knows that.
I don't say that lightly.
No. But hear my theory on this. I think the whole Brown situation. I think the erratic behavior was planned. I really do. I don't think there's anything deep down wrong with him. I think he planned all this. Did the Patriots have something to do with it? Possibly. Don't know. Deep down, there's something. This is just it happened. But the thing is, all this stuff, this erratic behavior, got him to get kicked off the team. And because of that, he got his way, because here's the thing. Most teams are going to look at Antonio Brown once he gets a release. Oh, yeah, he's a hot commodity, but also a hothead. So here's the thing. The Patriots wanted him, and this is how they got him. So I think it's a little mix of everything. I think it's the Patriots, finding their little niches to bend the rules, but not bend them where it gets them in trouble. But at the same time, Antonio bent them where he could play, but also get released, but also have his way. I think that some of this mental illness was planned on his part, erratic behavior.
And it could be, and I hope for his sake that that's the case. If there is no collusion here, though, it's the responsibility of the New England Patriots to get this guy help. Because if this is not collusion, and if this erratic behavior is just all Brown, then that guy's got problems. I mean, even we talk about T.O., we talk about Randy Moss, we talk about all these guys that have been called quote-unquote head cases or quote-unquote divas, Chad Johnson. You look at Brown, and he's so far removed from any of those guys in terms of his behavior and how erratic he has been. So I saw something on Facebook, John, the other day, and there was a hit that Vontaze Burfict crushed Antonio Brown in the skull with. And ever since then, it's funny because I never really dawned on me until I saw that. It's like, is there a CTE situation because of that hit? We've talked about it, John. Brown hasn't always been this way.
No,
he was a model citizen for a good part of his career.
Yeah, but remember the diva kind of part came out of him once he won an MVP. I mean, he thinks he's walk on water. He's good. He's good.
Is it that hit? I mean, this is something we take seriously now, or at least we should. Did that hit cause him trauma? I mean, he's obviously been well touted and highly touted since not as necessarily his rookie season, but early on in his career. He really broke out his second season, but he's always had an opportunity to have an ego. But I don't know. I think that Vontaze Burfict hit might have something to do with it too, but we don't really know. It's a big mystery. Is this collusion? Is he mentally ill? And I know one thing, John. This is not a good example to set, and this is a slippery slope in the NFL when guys can just act foolish to get out of their contracts to go play for a team to win a championship. It reminds me of what's going on in the NBA where they're creating these super teams, and the NFL has a cap in place to not allow that. But when teams like the Patriots can just sign a guy for $9 million, it's an unfair advantage. And now when Tom Brady retires, that all goes down the crapper. But I think you get my greater point.
I just think the Antonio Brown thing, I think if he actually...
And the other thing, too, and I want to throw this out there, and this might be a hot-button issue, the man is throwing around racial slurs. Where is the punishment for that? Like, is that not conduct detrimental to the team and the league? I don't know. This guy is getting away with murder right now.
Yeah, but I think they also thought that punishment was the fine that he was supposedly getting.
But that's the team's punishment. Doesn't Goodell have a responsibility as the commissioner to? I mean, any racial slur to any race or creed or any slur to religion or any of that stuff should be unacceptable.
No, I agree, but this is Goodell. Goodell picks and chooses who he punishes. Right. That's the sad part.
And so anyway, we can go all day on this unfortunate situation. I think Antonio Brown, if we're talking in a fantasy perspective, I think while he's out there and if he's not disruptive, even if he is disruptive to the team, he's going to excel there. And you can expect, I think, the production that you saw in Pittsburgh, because even if you have a Josh Gordon there, which you do, and an Edelman, so I guess maybe not quite that production, but it's going to be pretty darn close.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the other night, Brown was not out there, but we know Edelman is still Mr. Blanky for Mr. Brady. We did also see Philip Dorsett used. I think they're gonna use all their receivers. The question is who sticks out the most. I mean, Brown automatically, his prior history alone, he should be the number one or the number two with deep threat.
Virus protection for like the 30th.
What is going on here?
Oh, I just stopped it. He should be the number one and number two there. I mean, they have a ton of weapons. I mean, it's just this team looks solid without even Antonio Brown. And Brady Manning, I think he put, I don't even know the exact number, but it was over 400 yards passing that game. Are we going to see like a replication of Manning when he had 3,000-yard receivers? It is possible here.
And Tom Brady went so late. I mean,
he's a bargain at this point now.
For the NFL, it's getting silly, and the Super Bowl is becoming irrelevant at this point. Hence the lower ratings that they've been getting lately. But for fantasy, I mean, this is wheels up for certainly Tom Brady. I mean, how could you have any better weapons? We looked at LA as the best receiving core. Well, they got some major competition right now with Edelman and Gordon and Brown. So let's move on.
Okay, next bit of news. This is not an injury, but it just broke out today. Demaryius Thomas from the Patriots was traded to the New York Jets for a 2021 round 6 pick.
Smart move by New England. Obviously, they can't use him. They might as well get something out of him. A little surprised they traded within the division, but let's face it, all those teams are trash.
But you're going to talk about a guy that is cut and just got a 6th-round pick out of him, so that's actually a good deal. They cut him, then they re-signed him, and now he gets
you're not lying there. That is pretty brilliant. Depth add, I think, for New York. I don't think it's anything more than that. I think Crowder is going to be a big piece of that offense in terms of targets. I think Robbie Anderson is still their number one. So I think he's a depth add. I don't know if he makes a big fantasy impact, but he could. And let's face it, he had a major injury last year.
Yeah, he's another weapon for Darnold. It's not going to hurt them.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, next news. Nick Foles breaks his collarbone. He is sent to IR with designation to return, though, and Gardner Minshew is now the starter. I actually said that name correctly.
His name. I am baptizing him in the fantasy world as Gunter Minshew, because I think the name Gunter is cooler and nobody really knows what the heck his first name is anyway, so we might as well make something up cool. So Gunter played really well, and we'll get into that a little bit later when we break down that game, but yeah, definitely interesting. I guess we'll save that for when we get to the Jacksonville KC game.
Tyreek Hill hurt his shoulder. At the moment it looks like a sprain. But
a few weeks,
yep,
right?
Up to possibly 3.
That's a bad deal.
But it is better than they thought. They thought initially it could have been a tear, but they thought the sprain was actually worse than what it was. But 2 to 3 weeks is still better than IR.
So Watkins, and we'll get into it, was incredible. He was the Sammy Watkins that the Buffalo Bills drafted all those years ago.
You mean all those years we spent picks on him?
Right.
And he finally came out?
Also, what about McCole Hardman?
His value goes up now.
Okay.
So, next bit of news: Tevin Coleman is out with a high ankle sprain. Will miss period of time anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. Matt Burrito out the time.
Yeah, Burrito. I mean, I was a little disappointed with Burrito's performance this weekend. We actually started in our tag team league. We came out with the W, but that was thanks in large part to Lamar Jackson. But I think, again, and we're going to repeat this probably a lot in this episode, week 1 is bizarro world. If you guys look back at week 1s in the past, it is not indicative of how the season turns out. So I would be very optimistic about Matt Burrito, given that he's really the lead back now. And, of course, Mostert got some action. Sunday.
Yeah, Mostert should. We'll talk about that more, but he should be picked up as a waiver wire claim if he. Especially with Breida's history. That's the only reason I'm saying it.
Everybody's talking about the wide receivers that are on the wire, but Gio Bernard, especially if Mixon misses time, Raheem Mostert, those are guys that you definitely want to keep your eye on.
And running backs are harder to find.
Especially Gio.
Gio's
Mostert could get half the workload.
He could, yeah.
But good for Breida as well.
So Mike Williams exited the Chargers game late in the fourth quarter with a knee injury. Right now, there's really no concern. From what I've read, he's day-to-day. There's no big news on this yet. If we find out anything, we'll make sure we are on it. But as of right now, it's just a precautionary knee injury.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that.
Something to keep your eye on, though. Something that could be re-aggravated.
Yeah. Sterling Shepard is in the concussion protocol, and he may not play this Sunday. He still needs to be cleared. If he didn't, Corey Latimer and Evan Ingram would see a huge uptick.
I think Evan Ingram would. I don't know if Cody Latimer is really going to be an option either way. But if you look at Shepard's game, John, you got 10 points out of him in PPR. It was the ugliest, filthiest, trashiest 10 points I've ever seen in my life. 6 catches for 40 yards is not good. So he didn't look good. If you're stashing Golden Tate, good idea. If you don't have him and he's on the waiver wire, I would look at Golden Tate. I think he's going to be really, really good when he comes back in week 5.
So what's not going to be fun is Devin Funchess. He broke his collarbone. He will miss multiple weeks. Sent to IR. They're hoping he'll be back for week 10 return, designation to return.
This, I think, John, is huge for Ebron. Honestly, I think Ebron is the guy that's most impacted by Funchess's availability and now lack thereof. I think he benefits the most from it. Paris Campbell, maybe. I know that's probably what you're thinking, but I think Funchess is more the prototype of Ebron or Doyle than Campbell. My opinion.
Yep. Juju got a toe injury, but it is not considered serious. It is considered day-to-day, and he is expected to play this Sunday. But just something to keep an eye on. Toe injuries can always get worse, especially on turf. It actually can make them a lot worse.
Definitely.
But he's expected to play Sunday, so that's great news. What's not great news is Darius Geis injured his right knee. Looks like a meniscus injury. Looking like a 2 to 3 weeks he'll be out. So Mr. Gucci is going back to the shop.
And he's this guy's a prototype 3-down back. So if Chris Thompson's on your waiver wire, go snag him, because Darius Geis can catch passes. Adrian Peterson can't. He's not a pass catcher. He'll run the ball for you, and some games he'll blow up, some games he won't. He's script dependent, I think, John. If Washington's going to be down, which they really weren't this week, but if Washington's going to be down, you're not going to see a big game from Peterson. If they're up, you might, but you're definitely going to see involvement from Chris Thompson. Here we go again with Chris Thompson. Start him while you can, I guess, until he gets hurt.
Especially when they're behind, they throw a lot. Chris Thompson's involved a lot. This week, they didn't have Jordan Reed, so I don't know what his extent of his is. He was declared out this week as
they did have somebody else, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So next bit of news: Joe Mixon, ankle sprain, but is considered low grade and he is considered day to day. So that is good news.
Good play this week, but I would still, if you have Joe Mixon and you don't have Gio Bernard, shame on you. That's all I'm saying. And if you have Joe Mixon and you don't have Gio Bernard, you need to spend 15% of your fab, in my opinion, and go get him. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, especially with, let's be honest, Mixon has not played a full 16-game slate. So it's insurance.
And Gio is probably the best handcuff in the league.
Oh, he's one of the best. I would easily say.
Maybe Malcolm Brown is, but we'll get to that too. So anything else, dude?
Yep. One last thing. Greg Olsen missed both Monday and Tuesday practices. With him missing practice, he may not play in this Thursday night's game.
Okay.
And that's it for news. Very short and sweet this week.
All right. So let's get into reactions. We'll go back all the way back to Thursday night, John, with the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. And this game was trash. And sadly, John.
Excellent.
You know who that is?
Yes, I know. That's Monty.
That's Monty Burns. Yes.
Excellent.
Not so excellent this past week.
what was pretty actually excellent. This was actually a more defensive game than I thought. And I'm not saying that's a good reason that some of these people did bad. I mean, we expected Green Bay's rushing not to do well against Chicago's defense. We expected that. Aaron Rodgers still did pretty decent against these guys. I mean, he had a decent game. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, like I said before, he owned Chicago. I believe I picked Green Bay to win. I did say that.
Okay.
So, they did win. A very close game, but this was a very, very bad game to pick for the starting of the NFL, I think, an opening game. It was all defense. I mean, imagine, I like shootouts. That's me personally. I don't know how you
I mean, as a fantasy owner, how can you not? You know, it's what we play the game for is to see offensive points, especially in our league where we do not have defense, special teams, or IDP. So yeah, it was a disappointment of a game, I would say. Geronimo Allison. What are we thinking there now?
I feel like an owl. Who? Because he wasn't out there.
He was a non-factor.
Which the guy he was lining up against, I believe, had like a 6-inch height advantage on him, and you saw nothing out of Allison.
Yeah, and I think my MVS was encouraging. 4 for 52, not a terrible stat line.
6 targets.
A better stat line actually than Devontae Adams, who only had 8 targets.
Oh, he did horrible for me.
So that speaks a lot to me. And I don't think MVS is going to be on your waiver wire, but 6 targets to Devontae Adams, 8 targets. That's pretty good, John. How are you breaking that down in your mind?
I mean, Devontae Adams, this is a divisional matchup. We knew they were going to play a little tougher. We knew Chicago is a tough team defensively, all around, passing and rushing against them, I should say.
Yeah.
I think Devontae Adams will bounce back this week. The targets are very promising, but the stat line was not promising at all.
For Devontae.
But
I think it was for MVS.
MVS was very good. I mean, MVS, you basically got 9 points out of him. Which I don't think he was even closely projected for that because nobody knew who would be used, Allison or him. A lot of people were touting Allison all week because of the matchup he had, and it was MVS who actually came out and rocked it.
Yeah.
But you gotta look at the stat line too. That 1 catch for 47 yards actually makes him look better than what he is too, though.
Right, and going on the other side of the ball, you got to look at the stat line for a guy like Tariq Cohen. Stats for 10 targets, which is great. Second only to Allen Robinson, who had a intense 13 targets, which is great. Tariq Cohen, 10 targets, 8 catches, 49 yards. So not all that efficient. But he put up a good fantasy stat line. And then you look at David Montgomery, who had 1 reception for 27 yards, which really was probably the biggest part of his day. 6 carries for 18 yards at 3 yards per carry. Not what we're looking for. His longest run was 6 yards. Just didn't look like a big part of that game plan. And he got outsnapped by Mike Davis too, John.
Yeah, but I personally watched that game that night. Montgomery, I think the problem is most running backs, when they're given the amount of carries, and the problem here was the carries were all over the place. It was a running back by committee. I don't think Montgomery could get in the groove because when he did run on a few plays, he looked really good actually. But the problem is when you play one series, then you sit the next 3, then you're back in, your muscles get cold. So, I mean, that's the thing. He couldn't get in a rhythm. I'm not blaming this all on Montgomery. I'm blaming it on the coach. I mean, I think Montgomery's got the talent. I just don't know what's holding the coaching staff back for starting them. I don't know if it's a playbook curve. I don't know if it's maybe they're not. They screamed about this guy in the preseason, how he's everything.
Yeah, they love
I'm just trying to understand why they're not using him.
Well, and again, I mean, it's not like they were down a ton of points. It's just a terrible offensive game. You look at Mitch Trubisky, it's just dreadful. And it wasn't that bad of a matchup, unless Green Bay has completely turned it around on defense, and that's a possibility. But, wide receivers torched Green Bay last year.
Yeah.
But Trubisky just couldn't get it going. I mean, Allen Robinson, 7 catches for 102 yards. That's a really good stat line. He really surprised me. I thought that Anthony Miller was going to be more involved. But there's another guy, Anthony Miller, that was just like, oh my God, nothing. So what I would say to put a bow on this game, guys, is this is this exemplifies what's wrong with week one and why you got to calm down on overreacting and stuff like that. So I look at Anthony Miller, and I have Anthony Miller on my keeper league team, and I looked and I'm like, man, this stinks. Maybe I should cut him. And then I'm like, DJ, what are you thinking? Like, Anthony Miller by week 6 could be a really big contributor.
Yeah, some people,
Anthony Miller, if he was on the waiver wire this week, John, he'd be my number 1 receiver. Honestly. Because I believe in him that much. So be careful with week 1, and in terms of overreacting, I'm pretty sure, John, you would agree with
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I mean, week 1, it's not even just week 1, it's the first couple weeks. Like I said before, some people just have to get in their groove, and then you'll notice when people get in their grooves, like Keenan Allen last year just went off. I mean, that's the thing. When these guys get in their grooves, they go on a hot streak, and that's the thing. And some people, it'll be game to game. Maybe they'll have a big game week 2, then a big game week 4. Might be a little sporadic. You want consistency, though. But right now, we're just still trying to analyze trends. I mean, that's why you said week 1 is the hardest thing. And, it is bizarre week, especially when we're going to talk about this next game.
Well, hold on. I'm going to jump to another game on this slate here. Because there's a guy, John, I'm kind of excited about. I'm a little excited about. I'm not going to lie. So we're going to move on to...
I already know. Let me guess, the Philly game?
Yeah, we might be going over to Philadelphia.
I think they're on the Redskins side of the ball. Am I guessing this one right?
So my number 1 waiver wire pick...
Wait, you changed your name to McLovin? McLovin? What kind of a stupid name is that, Fogel? What, are you trying to be an Irish R&B singer?
Oh, they let you pick any name you want when you get down there.
And you landed on McLovin.
So as we like to call him, McLovin, Terry McLaurin, man, he looked pretty darn good.
Really good. 5 catches for 125 yards and a TD and 7 targets.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's impressive.
7, and that's the thing. So when we look, John, one of the things that separated a lot of these waiver wire guys for me was the fact that he saw 7 targets, and a lot of the other guys didn't see much more than what they. So you look at Hollywood Brown. I think we can check this when we get to that game. He had, I think, 4 targets, 3 receptions on 4 targets. So, and he didn't even play a lot of snaps either. Like,
no.
He wasn't out there for a full snap workload.
The thing about, now I gotta say McLovin. I can't even say McLaurin anymore.
You can say McLovin. It's fine.
McLovin.
It just says McLovin.
McLovin or McLaurin, or how you ever want to go about this. Now you got me all mixed up on that one. He had a 93% snap rate. Highest in the league, actually.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, when you look at this stuff, you want to look at the usage, the opportunity. So you got talent, right?
Yep.
But you need opportunity, and I think McLovin is going to have a lot more opportunity than some of the other guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's shined in the preseason. He actually showed great chemistry with Keenan and Haskins. And now with something like, I mean, this game just proves that the targets alone, that he's going to be a part of that offense.
Yep, I'm loving McLovin. Ooh, you like that?
I'm loving McLovin.
Like
That's going to get a little ring to it.
So we talked about Darius Guice.
No, let's not talk about him.
Yeah, we talked about Chris Thompson, 7 receptions for 68 yards.
That's where the PPR comes in.
3 carries for 10 yards. So he had a good game, man. And I'm telling you guys, I would definitely look at... Chris Thompson isn't going to be a sexy name on the waiver wire, I think, simply because he has burned so many people so many times. But I think you're foolish to avoid him on the wire. Just, you can't, again, we'll go back to like what we always said, you can't project for injury. You can't predict for injury. You need to just go with the talent and the opportunity, and Chris Thompson has both.
Yeah, and I mean, another surprising thing was Trey Quinn. Trey Quinn had 6 targets as well, and 4 catches, 33 yards, and a TD.
Yeah. Trey Quinn was another guy that was a sleeper for me. So I think he's another guy you could look in the waiver wire. I don't know if he's got the home run hitting ability as McLaurin. I mean, 125 yards. That's 25 yards per catch. That's pretty darn good.
13, so I don't know why you would even ban the run.
Because Doug Moron does not deserve to be a head coach. He's an idiot. Leonard Fournette is by far his best player, and if you can't tell, I have Leonard Fournette on my team. But it's very frustrating to watch. You know what I thought when I was watching this game? They haven't changed. Leonard Fournette has,
but they haven't.
But they haven't changed. They don't understand that sometimes you just gotta play football and let it play out. You can't abandon your mentality or your approach just because your quarterback got hurt. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. This is a game where they should have leaned heavily into Leonard Fournette, and they didn't commit to it. And I just don't know. I don't think they understand how to pace games out. I really don't, John. They're idiots. They're morons. But, I mean, Fournette had an okay game, but not great. Gunter Minshew, who has like this awesome mustache, like he looks like Magnum PI out there. He had a good game, man. 22 for 25, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Are you looking at him on the waiver wire?
I'm going to be honest with you.
Easiest schedule for quarterbacks, too.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm tempted to, but I'm also don't want to fall for it. I would rather see one more game out of him.
I would put 5% fab on him.
Well, I can see that.
Just in case.
He's not going to be my number one waiver wire pickup.
But he's got an easy schedule.
No, I get
so
that.
if you're in a situation
but are his stats overblown because of this game? Kansas City was one of the worst passing defenses in the league.
You know how I feel when you can't script somebody. They didn't plan for Gunter Minshew.
Yeah.
For the record, his name is like Gardner or something.
Gardner Minshew.
But we call him Gunter here. So when you don't game plan for a guy, he's probably likely to have a good game. But he's still, that defense played pretty well against Foles, and he went out there and executed. So I think there might be something there. Jacksonville's passing game, 4 for 146 for DJ Chark with a touchdown. Only 4 targets. He made the most of it, obviously. Chris Conley had a good game, 6 for 97 with a touchdown. 5 for 30 from D.D. Westbrook with a touchdown. So the receivers played well. Jeff Swain was targeted 4 times, which was interesting. But yeah, I think the tail of the tape here is they lost the game because they didn't use Fournette. That's my opinion.
Yeah, they were throwing the ball by then.
And they went against Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, by then it was too late. So, I don't know. I'm sold on Cashew Minshew, whatever his name is yet. Yeah. So I think it's a wait and see for me. But
Rivers definitely didn't play like Uncle Rico. He had a pretty solid game, 333 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Excellent game from Mr. Rivers. Austin Eckler was solid with 12 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown. He also added 6 catches for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. Austin Eckler went off. Justin Jackson, John, 6 carries for 57 yards, but he looked good.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they give him a little bit more of that ground game because he did look very effective out there. Eckler obviously owned the day, but Jackson looked really good. Hunter Henry, 4 catches for 60 yards. Not a bad stat line there. Like you said, Mike Williams got hurt, so he didn't really produce much. That's pretty much the tail of the tape for those guys for LA. And then if you look at the Indy side of the ball, John, I was very surprised to see Marlon Mack get 25 carries, 174 yards and a touchdown. Just a monster game for Mack. He had his longest was a 63-yard run. T.Y. Hilton, 8 for 87, man. So, and 2 touchdowns. So, is it Jacoby Brissett is good enough to get production out of Hilton now, or is it Hilton that's actually saving Jacoby Brissett?
I think it's Hilton saving Brissett, but it's also this offensive line. Look what they did for Marlon Mack.
Yeah.
This is one of the top offensive lines in the league. Yeah, and it clearly showed.
But that was it. It was the Mack and Hilton show. Those guys were just awesome. Are you going to see that every week? I don't know. I don't think so. But definitely encouraging to see T.Y. Hilton perform out there. Not only perform, but dominate with Jacoby Brissett. But if you actually watch the game, Hilton did all the work on that. It was almost like watching Brady and Edelman. Edelman does all the work. Yeah. Brady gets the benefit of the stats from it. But pretty fantasy relevant game here. Nothing really in terms of waiver wire candidates, I don't think. The tight ends in Indy did not have a good game. 5 targets total between Doyle and Ebron. They only caught 2 passes between the two of them. But I would go after. I would say waiver relevant Justin Jackson, guys. He looked good. He's not going to show it in the stat line, but he did look really good. He had 9.5 yards per carry. That's pretty darn effective. Anything else in that game, John?
No, not really. Nothing interests me.
All right, sounds good. So after Colts and Chargers, we're on to Cincinnati, or more specifically, Seahawks. As Seattle is where the game was played, but Cincinnati Bengals, I think, had some surprises, man. Andy Dalton, 418 yards, 2
51
touchdowns.
attempts.
That's the big takeaway from this game, is Zach Taylor is not afraid to throw the ball. And it's almost like he prefers it. Joe Mixon only 6 carries, but he went out with injury. John Ross, 7 catches on 12 targets,
More than Boyd.
12 targets for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. John Ross finally has his coming out party in week 1 of 2019. Does this keep up?
I don't know, but it's not going to keep up for long. I would say if it does, week 4 or 5, because AJ Green will be back, but he may still eat a little bit, but I don't think he eats like this.
Is Jared Goff that much better than Andy Dalton, do you think?
No.
I don't think so either. I think he's better, but I don't think he's, well, especially not what he's getting paid. But I think you might be able to see Andy Dalton sustain 3 receivers, especially if the offense is tailored toward that. John Ross had 12 targets, man. Tyler Boyd had 11 targets and 8 for 60. So not a slouch of a game from Boyd either. These guys look good, and I was really disappointed to see them lose that game because I thought they played really well overall, but not much of a running game to speak of. Although, if you look at Gio, 7 carries for 21 yards, not great. But I think Gio, if Mixon is out an extended period of time, or even a week or two, Gio's going to get a heavy workload. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Oh, I definitely agree. He's always been the workhorse running back fill-in. I mean, he's the best handcuff in the league. I mean, the guy can catch, the guy can run. I know this game didn't show it, but I think you'll be fine with Bernard. He is this very, very safe handcuff to have, especially for bye weeks or injury.
Yeah, I mean, I know Seattle's defense isn't what they used to be, but I like what I saw from Cincinnati's offense. They weren't afraid. They went out and attacked. I'd like to see more points out of it. I mean, really only 2 touchdowns for Ross, 2 touchdowns for Dalton. I think that was it for offensive touchdowns. Am I mistaken? I do not think I am.
No, that's it.
Yeah, obviously only 14 points, so a couple field goals there. We don't really talk about kickers either. Seattle though, Russell Wilson, not great. Not great.
Not for Wilson, it wasn't. No.
I would say bad. He only had 196 yards passing. 4 carries for 8 yards. He's just not a running quarterback anymore, John. It doesn't seem to look like that.
I think age is finally starting to catch up with him a little more.
Well, he's not even that old, though.
No, but he's not exactly young either. But
So is Cincinnati's defense that much more improved? And that might be. Tyler Lockett, not good. More of the same from Lockett.
Let's be honest, is Seattle's offense really that bad?
It could be. Chris Carson had a... Carson's rushing, and I'm going to go back to this, guys. 3.1 yards per carry. That's Chris Carson. But he was heavily involved in the passing game. He had the most targets on the team. 7 targets, 6 catches for 35 yards, though. Not efficient. Chris Carson had a rushing touchdown. Chris Carson had a receiving touchdown. And if not for that, I'm not high on Carson. I'm just not, John. He's not very efficient. Penny wasn't that efficient either, to be honest with you. 6 carries for 18 yards. He was at 3 yards a carry, too. DK Metcalf was the beacon of hope in this game, I think. 4 catches for 89 yards on 6 targets. So he's obviously got some trust with Russell Wilson. And Lockett, 1 reception. Lockett does what Lockett does. He catches 1 pass and he gets a touchdown.
He was the beacon of doom.
Yeah, on 2 targets. So Metcalf is, I don't know, dude. This offense didn't look good. They won, but they didn't look good doing it.
Well, maybe it's a week 1 bizarro. Maybe they get better as it goes.
Well, what do you think? Do you think Metcalf's going to be the number 1 there? Do you think Lockett turns it around in terms of targets?
I think from what I've seen from Lockett, I think he can sustain that number 1 role, and I think Lockett will probably be your number 2 out of the slot, the way it looks right now. But I think I'm gonna risk it for the biscuit. I think I'm gonna go DK Metcalf for the number 1 receiver there.
All right. Well, I got one thing to say. Well, I got a question for you, John. How about them Cowboys?
Oh, those Cowboys! I did not get to see this game, but I did hear about it in every aspect from everyone. Dak Prescott, wow.
So yeah, he had a great game.
And I will say this: I know how much you hate Jason Garrett, but Kellen Moore is
the savior, man.
So there was a joke going around. Kellen Moore, when he did play for the Cowboys.
Wait, in the offseason, what did I tell you about Kellen Moore?
You said he was great.
I said he might be next year's guy that everybody wants on as their head coach. He might be with Zach Taylor this year. There's always the offensive guy from the offensive system. It was who's the guy in San Fran there?
Oh, Shanahan.
Shanahan was one of those guys. The guy in LA. I don't know. I'm forgetting these guys' names. I think Kellen Moore is the next guy like that.
Oh, here's the thing about Kellen Moore. He did not. I don't know if I think he might have started a couple times, but he was
a backup with them.
The joke was when he played for the Cowboys, he sat on the bench a lot, so because he was a backup, and sometimes he went down.
That didn't work for Garrett.
No, but so Kellen Moore, like they said, who knows? This kid could have been designing plays when he was on the bench. But whatever he designed this week, he showed that you don't even need to have a run game. He made that.
Which, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
13 carries for Zeke Elliott. When you're winning like that is unacceptable. I don't know if they're easing him in.
I think they're easing him in.
They need to stop doing that.
He's in good shape because Pollard got the ball 13 times.
Well, Zeke was Zeke, 4.1 yards per carry. He got in the end zone. He just only got 13 carries.
The thing I like to see about this is Amari Cooper. You called it on Amari Cooper.
You called it on Michael Gallup.
Yes, thank you.
7 catches for 158 yards for Gallup. Cooper 6 for 106 with a touchdown. Randall Cobb had a great game.
Randall Cobb's back, I think.
4 catches for... And again, I said, what did I say in the offseason when you were touting Gallup? I'm like, don't sleep on Randall Cobb. He's no joke. Jason Witten caught a touchdown. Blake Jarwin caught a touchdown. You get a touchdown. You get a touchdown. You get a touchdown. What a glorious day.
I guess we'll start calling Dak Prescott Oprah Prescott.
It was a glorious day for the Dallas Cowboys, and it couldn't happen to a worse bunch of guys in the New York Giants. And I was so glad to see them lose because I hate the Giants as a Cowboys
I know you hate
fan.
the Giants, but there is some shining hope on this side.
10.9 yards per carry. Is that where you're going with that?
No, actually, I was actually going with Eli.
Oh, okay. Well, he wasn't bad.
30 of 44, 306.
Yeah, only one touchdown.
That's what hurt him. So, it's actually good to see he didn't throw any picks. Against a good... The Dallas Cowboys defense is really good this year. So not to throw a
They weren't good against Barkley, though.
And, believe it or not, Eli only got sacked one time against a great defense.
I know.
So I'll give it to him.
So 2 guys stand out, and these were the guys that we both called to stand out. Evan Ingram, 11 receptions on 14 targets, 116 yards and a touchdown. They said we're going to focus on Ingram in the passing game, and that's what they did. And then, of course, Saquon Barkley had 11 carries, which is nothing, for 120 yards. This guy is sickening, man. 10.9 yards per carry. It's crazy. And then Gallman vultures a touchdown.
He actually would have had a rushing touchdown if Chidobe didn't catch him. He sprinted across field to get him.
And Gallman vultured him, too, on another one. So that could have been more. Sterling Shepard looked bad, as I said before. 6 for 42 is unacceptable.
I think with Shepard in the concussion protocol, I'll still say it again. I think Cody Latimer is worth a waiver wire pickup this week if Shepard sits. He had 8 targets, 3 catches for 74 yards.
And Gallman got usage, so that's the handcuff for Barkley, too, if you're a Barkley owner. 3 receptions for 24 yards. And of course, only 2 carries for 17 yards, but he did get the goal line carries.
But he's the handcuff, though.
He's the definite handcuff, and that is a takeaway to be had in that game. So we're moving on, right?
Yep, Lions and Cardinals. This game was back and forth. If you watch this game, you're sitting there.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest.
Sometimes.
Don't you cry no
I'm crying.
I'm just gonna cry.
I'm gonna cry.
Carry on, Johnson.
So this game
What
actually,
happened? This is another dumb coach situation, I think.
I think Matt Patricia needs to stick to defense. Simple as that, not head coaching. Matt Stafford had a great game. 27 for 45 for 385 yards passing and 3 TDs, 0 interceptions. This is the Stafford that they drafted him for right here. That was a monster game from Stafford.
Well, you know what I wish Stafford would have done?
Another disappointment. So this is what threw everybody off.
You know, Stafford.
Yeah, carry on, Johnson.
You could have thrown 1 or 2 of those touchdowns. Because I wanted to celebrate with
but
Galladay.
Galladay got targeted 9 times, 4 receptions for 42 yards and a TD.
It wasn't a bad game.
Wasn't a bad game, but I did not see this one coming. Danny Amendola targeted 13 times with a stat line of 7 catches for 104
Which
yards.
will not happen every week. So that's the one takeaway for me. And also Hawkinson, 6 for 131 with 9 targets.
Wow.
Galladay had
blown
9.
away.
So Galladay had 9 targets as well, which is encouraging. But I was really surprised that Galladay didn't feast in this game without Patrick Peterson up his rear. This is another example of, in my opinion, bizarro world. Kerryon Johnson, only 3.1 yards per carry. Disappointing, but don't freak out, guys. This kid's going to be fine. They believe in him. I would have liked to see more carries for him, honestly.
I don't like the CJ Anderson use.
Yeah.
That's concerning.
I don't think that's going to be common. I really think this is going to be one of those situations where you're going to look back at week 1 and be like, wow, CJ Anderson had 1 game this year where he was even remotely involved. I think that could be the case. Marvin Jones, not a bad game, 4 for 56. Would have liked seen more there. They spread it out a lot, and it really helped Matt Stafford, but didn't necessarily help any one particular receiver outside of Amendola.
Or Hawkinson.
But I think Galladay's their number 1 receiver, and I think he'll be fine. You saw the 9 targets there, and Kerryon's going to be fine too. And Stafford, I'm on to Stafford again. He looks like the guy he looked like before the broken back.
Yeah,
I
think if he's got the weapons, I'm not saying he's going to put up 385 and 3 TDs, but I can see him put up 300
the guy's been known to put up 5,000 yard yard seasons. So he's definitely an interesting guy to look at. Kyler Murray looked awful, and then he didn't. 308 yards, 2 touchdowns. He ran for 13 yards, nothing really major there. David Johnson, 18 carries for 82. He also added 6 receptions for 55 yards. Great game for Johnson. He got a receiving touchdown as well. But he didn't, he came out of nowhere toward the end, man. He was nothing until the end of that game.
Who?
David Johnson.
Yo,
he's back.
David Johnson.
You know who else is back? Larry Fitzgerald, 8 receptions for 113
I told
yards.
you, that guy, every time you think he's done with fantasy or near the end of his career,
240-plus yard receptions.
he just blew up.
A touchdown.
He just blew up. But I want to go into David Johnson real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's the good thing that I like seeing. Chase Edmonds was barely used.
I guess it doesn't really surprise me. I still don't know what the Cardinals' offense is, though, after watching that game. I still don't know.
And David Johnson had 87% of the snaps.
Yeah, no,
that's amazing.
He's the workhorse that he's always
Yep,
been.
and here's the other thing, too. He was utilized in this game at receiver more, which last year it was not much. He's being used like he was with Arians, and that's what makes David Johnson shine.
Yep.
Is when he gets out in the open space, and it clearly showed with his numbers here.
So let's go on to this ugly mess that happened Sunday night. I don't know what it is with Ben Roethlisberger, but at this stage of his career, the New England Patriots are certainly in his head. I feel like he just sees them on the slate and says, yeah, no, I'm good. I'll put all my effort into the next game. I'm not trying in this one. And James Conner, 10 carries, Juju was the only bright spot with 6 receptions for 78 yards. James Conner did add some through the air too, 4 for 44. Just abysmal. I mean, really, Juju was the only guy that showed up to play for Pittsburgh, and are you surprised? I mean, it's the type of guy
but there is a couple of inspiring things. I know one was a deep pass, but James Washington saw 6 targets.
He did, yep.
And Moncrief saw 10, but had 3 catches for 7 yards.
Because he's bad at football.
Because he's bad. That's
He's
why
bad.
Washington will be the number 2.
No, that's a good point, John. I would definitely start latching on to Washington now because you're going to see that, as I like to say, the triple beam is going to go in the other direction.
This is what I was talking about. Is Moncrief on paper will be the number 2.
Yeah.
But in stat lines, Washington has shown that he has the big playability. A 45-yard bomb. I don't care if there's garbage time or not. It's just a matter of time before this guy takes over. And it clearly shows how he's been playing in the preseason and even this week. So the targets are going to come more. I think the roles are going to switch here very soon. On the, I don't even know what to talk about on the Patriots side. It was just all around.
Not Sony Michel.
No. The Sony Michel, I'm just, wow. Maybe this was just a bad week.
He got 15 carries.
Yeah, he got the volume.
He just stunk.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not how you want to set the tone with
He
Bill
had a
Belichick.
0.9 yard average.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's banged up, but that's not the Sony Michel that we saw last season down the stretch. So again, if somebody wants to tilt on him and trade him or God forbid dump him, go get him because he'll be fine. Sony Michel's going to be fine. James White wasn't great, John. In the run game, he had 4 carries for 26 yards. Actually, not bad. Not bad in the pass game, 5 for 56. So a solid game from White, but not one of those. I guess my point is not one of those high upside games you see from him. Rex Burkhead, 5 catches for 41 yards, 8 carries for 44 yards. This is what Bill Belichick does to you if you own his running backs. You just don't know. I think it's a game for him at this point. Brady went off. 341 yards, 3 touchdowns. Great game there. Julian Edelman threw a pass for 32 yards, so you got you.
And that's extra fantasy point.
Yeah, point there. But 6 for 83. More of the same from Edelman. 11 targets, of course. Josh Gordon 3 for 73 with a touch. So I mean, when you look at the stat line, John, nobody went off except for Brady. He just
he spreads the love. I mean, but the targets, when you see in the targets though, it was all Burkhead and Edelman. And it still shows Edelman's the number 1 as of now until Brown.
I guess Burkhead kind of went off, but you get my point. He's like it wasn't. I thought Gordon would be heavily targeted, but so Antonio Brown, how does that fit in? You just as the owner of any Patriot, you got to kind of be biting your nails a little bit.
And we know
other than Brady at this point.
Brady, as much as they keep saying they're going to limit his throws and all this, we're going to run the ball more. It still looks like they're passing quite a bit.
All right, we got to pick up the pace here. So Houston and New Orleans.
We forgot one Sunday game.
Oh, did I?
The Bucks and 49ers.
Oh, you know why, John? Because I just I was really hoping the breakout would come week 1.
Boogie.
But the boogeyman stayed in the closet.
No, he did, but
he was under the bed. He didn't quite come out all the way. But yeah, no, Boogeyman actually looked pretty good. Hopefully they give him a little bit more of the work share. Weird game here. Weird game.
Yeah, I mean, the Boogeyman, here's the thing. The Buccaneers backfield, snap shares, Ronald Jones was 31%, Peyton Barber was 35%.
And they both stunk.
And the Boogeyman was 38%. So clearly shows...
Actually, Ronald Jones wasn't that bad.
No, rushing wise, he was not bad at all.
But the Boogeyman, he had four catches for 33 yards. 5 targets, which is solid for a running back. He didn't get a carry though.
Yeah, that's the concerning part.
So that's a little weak there. Chris Godwin 3 for 53 with a touch. If not for that, he would have not have had a great game. OJ Howard 4 for 32. Evans 2 for 28. This was just Jameis was bad. I think that's really
Jameis affected the whole team. He really did.
194, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean he just stunk up the house, and hopefully this changes. I know Arians has always said that, he can fix a quarterback. Is it time to panic on Winston or give it another game, you think?
I think
it's just bizarre week.
I think you're going to see more of a focus on the run here. They're not going to completely shift to an all-running offense, but I think they're going to put a little bit more pressure on the running backs, take a little bit more off Jameis. Again, I don't think this is going to be a common occurrence, but you will see Jameis have meltdown games. That's going to happen. I just don't think... I think this offense will be fine. I know people are going to want to tilt on it, say, I expected Godwin to be this PPR stud. He got 6 targets. He led the team in targets. And Evans was banged up too, if I'm not mistaken. So I wouldn't lose it here, but I think you're going to have those games where Tampa's offense just sputters. Speaking of sputtering, Jimmy Garoppolo is not good at football. He had 166 yards passing, 18 for 27, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, QBR 56.3. Just bad. I mean, this offense looked bad too. George Kittle had 10 targets, so that's good to see. That they're pretty much keeping that going. But anything here, John, other than Kittle? Burita had 15 carries.
It's just
2.5 yards a carry.
I mean, let's be honest. 2 of the touchdowns came off picks off of Winston.
Right.
They really didn't need to do much but run and just like
And they didn't even do that very well.
No. Burita was actually disappointed with a 2.5 yards per carry.
That really disappointed me, but I think give him time. I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this one game or X amount. I'm just saying
Just not a very fantasy relevant game, sadly. When I think we talked about this being a huge game.
Everybody,
and it was a defensive battle.
Vegas picked this as the highest scoring game. Look how it turned out.
So that's week 1 for you, though. All right, Houston. New Orleans beat them 30-28. This was a pretty good fantasy bonanza.
Oh, this game was awesome.
Yeah, the quarterbacks did really well.
Awesome.
Deshaun Watson, 268 yards passing, 40 yards rushing. He had 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Drew Brees, 370 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. So those guys just completely went off in a shootout. Kamara was Kamara, 13 carries for 97 yards, 7 catches for 72 yards. He's just automatic at this point. No touchdowns, thank God, if you were going against him, because if he had touchdowns, it would have been even worse. 6 carries for 43 yards for Murray. He got the touchdown. And he also tacked on 2 receptions, but only for 4 yards. So Murray didn't have a terrible game. He had a good, solid game.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas, another automatic, 10 catches for 123 yards. There's just no number 2. There's no number 2. The number 2 is Alvin Kamara in the receiving game. But Ted Ginn did pop 7 catches for 101 yards. Nothing wrong with that on 7 targets. But he was 3rd in targets behind Thomas.
Then you got Traquan Smith sneaking in there with a little sneaky touchdown.
Yeah, but Traquan only gets 2 targets. He just doesn't get targeted enough. But yeah, a lot to be liked on that. New Orleans offense looked great. No shock there. Fuller, 2 catches for 69 yards. Only on 3 targets though, but he looked great out there. He's a playmaker. And then of course DeAndre, 8 for 111, 2 touches.
He was amazing.
2 touchdowns, I should say. On 13 targets. Hopkins is Hopkins. Kenny Stills was good, 3 for 37 with a touchdown. Duke Johnson, a little disappointed. Not terrible. 6.3 yards per carry.
He's used in
but the volume, the fantasy points weren't necessarily there. Neither really was
It was
the
the snap count which shocked me because I did not see Hyde being this. I thought Hyde would be more of a pace back. It was the opposite. They actually split time.
Yeah.
Hyde did a great job running the ball, but
they did literally split time. But yeah, Hyde had 8.3 yards per carry. I think Johnson probably got more fantasy points with PPR.
Yeah, he
12
did.
12 points.
Duke Johnson actually played 41 snaps and had 9 carries and 5 targets. Carlos Hyde played 23 snaps, 10 carries, 1 target. So
maybe they want to preserve, Johnson because he's a smaller back. But I think he'll overtake that role. But you might have to wait.
It could be.
All right, the Raiders.
Last and final game.
Went out there and got a win, man, and I'm proud of those guys. They looked adversity in the face, where the league and their highest paid player, I think, with Brown, cheated them and treated them very poorly, and they went out there and won. And I have Josh Jacobs on my team, and he looked great. His yards per carry weren't great, but he did get 85 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, so showing that nose for the end zone. Nice catch for 28 yards. He looked good, John.
Yeah, he looked really good.
He looked like the real deal.
And I think, I'll be honest with you,
23 carries is very encouraging.
Yeah, when I was worried about his usage. The other good part of this, too, I think this AB release is actually better.
Look at Tyrell, man.
Tyrell wouldn't have been as good. Darren Waller. Didn't I see Darren Waller earlier in the year?
You did.
Darren Waller, 8 targets, 7 catches for 70 yards.
You also said Hunter Renfrow, though.
I could be wrong on something.
But yeah, no, Darren Waller looked great out there. And let's face it, at this point, Derek Carr just likes throwing to the tight end. Jared Cook succeeded there, and Darren Waller looks like he could be a good
this
grab.
offense, I think, may do better without AB. I mean, yeah, it does help. have the help.
Better's hard, but Tyrell Williams showed that he's up for the task, man. He had a great game.
He's the clear-cut number one there.
Yeah, 6 for 105 and a touchdown on 7 targets. Darren Waller had 8 targets, led the team in targets. And Josh Jacobs looked great, dude. So I hope the Raiders continue to, play well. Not much to speak of. Philip Lindsay is what we said he is, you and I, John. He did have 4 receptions.
Yeah, he had 6 targets, which was...
But for 23 yards.
Yeah.
And his rushing was 3.9 yards per carry, 11 for 43. So not the dynamic rusher that we saw last year. Freeman, however, 10 carries for 56 yards. I just don't know that you're ever going to get enough out of both of those guys splitting carries to really win you your week. They might be a bye-week flex option at this point, which for Philip Lindsay, that would be a huge plummet.
Yeah, the Royals Royce got parked, I think.
Yeah, but he was fine. Cortland Sutton, though, dude.
Wow.
We may be on to something here. 7 for 120, 8 targets, highest targeted guy on the team. And Emmanuel Sanders, man, looks good.
I told you nothing.
5 for 86 and a touch. I mean, you got to give him credit. So, in terms of, waiver wire guys, I don't think there's much to be had here. Maybe Darren Waller. You might see Emmanuel on your waiver wire. You probably want to go after him at this point. But yeah, pretty good output for Oakland, man. I'm happy to see them win, and hopefully they can continue their winning ways on the back of Josh Jacobs, for my sake. So what do you think? What do you think of Week 1, Bizarro World, huh?
Week 1, guys. Like I said, watch injuries. It is a bizarre week, but just try to look after trends. I mean, that does help. And the biggest thing is what you get out of these games. Like us looking at the box scores, we see the targets. What you want to see going forward is the targets continue and see the usage and stuff and start dissecting those. So
yeah,
this is clearly Week 1 is a stepping stone. It does help.
We'll see how Week 2 goes. You know what I want to see more of in Week 2?
The boogeyman.
I want to see more of the boogeyman. All right, guys, that'll do it for us. For John, I'm DJ.
See you guys soon.
We'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.